Today's Monday, December 22nd, and this is news from the Frunk. Hey everyone, welcome to News from the Frunk. This is a follow-up to the last video, so if you haven't seen that, click here and go and watch that first, and then come back. Okay, still with me? Right, let's wrap up the P85D test drive. I went back down to Dania today and had another go in the car, and so we'll review what I said yesterday and then figure out what's going on. So let's start with an overall comment on the P85D. I love this car. It is definitely a worthy successor to the P85 Plus and definitely deserves to be on the top of that Model S ranking and to a certain extent be on top of anything else that's out there. Specifically, I like the ride. It is stiffer than the P85, but the car feels much more planted, and with those new enhanced seats you definitely feel like you are a part of the car and not kind of sat on it as I feel a little bit with this now. You feel much more enveloped. The car is much more solid and stable on the road, and generally feels fantastic. Next, a couple of small niggles. The new cars have bigger headrests, as I mentioned, so here's a back-to-back comparison or a side-to-side comparison of the view out of the rear view mirror from my P85 and from the P85D, and so you'll see the visibility is pretty significantly reduced. The other one is the Frunk. I said the Frunk is smaller. I took some measurements today. So the existing Frunk is 38 inches wide, and the new Frunk is just the same. But the new Frunk is significantly shallower. So whereas my Frunk is 24 inches deep across the top and 21 inches deep at the bottom, the new Frunk is only 17 at the top and 14 at the bottom. So it's roughly a third smaller, plus you lose the microwave. So there you go, for what it's worth. Right, last but not least, we come to the acceleration test. On the last video I said the P85D didn't feel any quicker than the P85. Now I've had this for 2 years and I've had it on the drag strip, so I know what this thing is capable of, and I know what 4-point something feels like in this. So in insane mode on Saturday, I didn't think the P85D felt any faster, and I thought sport mode felt slower than this. I suspected it was due to a lack of charge in the batteries, so I did a test on this. Initially, I had a 70% charge in my P85, and I did several 0 to 60 tests, and the best I could get out of this was just over 4.6 seconds. I then max charged it, and I redid those 0 to 60 times, and I got it down to 4.3. So I reckon you can get a third of a second extra performance by going from a 70% charge to 100% charge. And I was pretty careful to try and recreate the exact same conditions every time. So that I'm convinced that that's a pretty solid result. So what happened with the P85D? Well, we went back today and it had a 212 mile charge, which still isn't 100%, but it's better than the 150 or so that it had before. So we did a couple of runs, and the results were I managed to get 3.5 seconds to 60. What was most noticeable was the initial pull away from zero, and the combination of that extra torque, certainly over 900 foot-pounds of torque, and that all-wheel drive really does boost you off the line quite incredibly initially, and much stronger than this. And that power then continues to build. So I managed to get not quite a full second better than this, but 0.8 of a second, and it was definitely noticeable. So here's a graph that shows those different runs. The slowest one at 4.6 seconds is my P85 at about a 70% charge, 170 miles of range. The slightly faster 4.3 second run is the same car at 100% charge. So I managed to knock a third of a second off. The final graph at 3.5 seconds is the P85D at 212 miles of range. So there you go, definitive proof that certainly with me as the driver doing the best I could, the P85D is very significantly faster than the P85. So I'll finish today with a side-by-side video of the P85D Speedo and the P85D Speedo on those two fastest runs. Apologies, I messed the video up at the start of the P85D run, so the first half second of footage is missing, but then you'll see they match side by side. I've also slowed it down by a factor of 5 so you can see the time clicking by. It is pretty impressive.